down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back. Hey, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast. Hey, hey, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Hey.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by the NMFTA. Let me ask you a question. Do you ship LTL freight? Then listen up, because the NMFC changes went live on July 19th, and they're the biggest updates in the history of freight classification. Now more than ever, accuracy matters. That's why carriers, shippers, and brokers alike are turning to Class IT Plus, the NMFTA's new digital platform for real-time NMFC data. Stop guessing, start classifying smarter, and quote freight with confidence. It's time to get your ship together because the NMFC changes are already here. Learn more at nmfcchanges.com and get started with Class IT Plus at classitplus.com. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say this before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special solo show for you guys here today. We're going to be breaking down the literal steps that I followed to build my book of business up to a seven-figure book of business. Now, for all the drivers who listen to my show, this is gross. All right. So trust me, I wish one day it will be a seven-figure profit, but right now it's a seven-figure gross. And I'm going to lay out the steps here, you guys, that I have followed recently, not throughout my career. This is something that I've done recently because I built this up within the last 36 months. And we're here to talk about that because, again, there's so much information that is out there. There's so much opinions by people who are sitting on the sidelines about what is going on. And I'm just going to tell you guys exactly what we did internally and why you can do it too, most importantly, because at the end of the day, nothing that I'm doing is proprietary. Nothing that I'm doing is overly special. I'm just doing the work day in and day out. And that is what is most important. I think of this saying, and I really live by it, right? Like, I would rather be consistently good than occasionally great. And I say that because everybody has a couple of fleeting moments of greatness, but like very rarely are people showing up day in and day out, putting in the work, putting in the reps, trying to get better, trying to master their crafts to actually see some real progression in their business, right? Because I look at it, I've worked for a very large broker. I was one of the early employees in another startup brokerage that was out there. I've trained and led people throughout the entirety of my career, and everybody's motivated occasionally, right? Like the thought of consistently making 100 dials a day, getting hung up on 90% of the time and getting told no another 8% of the time. And, it's not appealing. And I think that people put too much emphasis on the wrong work, right? And then they do, I put a post out recently about going 0 to 100, right? Like how many people fail in diet, exercise, if they want to give up drinking because they go completely cold turkey or they completely change everything. And then like they realize how much it sucks right away. And then they just give up, as opposed to small incremental changes. And I think that that is where a lot of people need to start. So I'm going to go over here and list this out. But before we do any of that, let's jump into This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT. And today we are breaking down my wheelhouse, which is flatbeds. I'm going to pull this up right now. And again, if you want your lane featured on this, you guys, I say it all the time, got to email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com. They just submit everything. All I need is a shipping city, a delivery city, and a trailer type. Again, if you don't want to put the exacts, I don't need the exacts, because like the region is good enough for me. I've been doing this long enough to know that like the lanes don't shift as much as people out there want you to seem. But like with this one in particular, you guys, we're going to be breaking down. I'm sticking into the southeast on this one, and this is one of those similar lanes that I move often, I will call it. And this lane that we are going to be breaking down today, you guys, is Fort Myers, Florida, going up to Richmond, Virginia. And this, it's outbound Florida. And I know no matter what, people are always going to say it's cheap freight. It's cheap freight. Get that cheap freight out of here. But the market's the market. And then especially with outbound Florida, because they get a pretty penny coming in there. I mean, I move a lot of full truckloads into Florida. I know what those pay. So if we're looking at it from like a round trip perspective, you can make some good money. I think the real issue that you will always face outbound Florida is just consistent volume, right? Because it is pretty sporadic that goes on out there. But this lane, to me, it's the epitome of stability. And this lane in particular literally performed almost identical to this last year. Because again, I actually move a very similar lane. We'll just call it within a couple 100 miles of each other, of the shipper and the receiver there. And it is almost on par what that looked like. I will say this to my carrier friends out there. We pay above market on this stuff, but all things considered, you guys, I look at the trend lines, and what you're seeing is a lot of stuff, coming out of Florida, it kind of stays stagnant in the flatbed world overall, right? Because there's not a ton of volume that comes out of there. I would say it's probably the outside of the Pacific Northwest, it's probably the easiest market to cover freight out of. But again, like we use a lot of the same carriers who are down there pretty consistently. But if I'm looking at this, you guys, like you got a couple of key spikes, and there's nothing on this lane in particular that I personally see that would make you think that you cannot give them the literally exact same price 12 months out of the year. And again, I'm not going to tell you what to quote, because I don't know what your customers' budgets are, and I don't want to go out there and shortchange anybody. But if you're utilizing this data that is on the screen right now, as you can see, there was like a $50 change maximum last year. And again, if you can go out there and get that price, that one that works for you, and then you can pay above market to your carriers, and you get that same truck in there time and time again, this is like, again, the epitome of stability out there. And, Florida for me is one of those markets where there's always going to be excess capacity. So you could go in with that mentality that some people do of like, how are we going to drive down this rate? I don't personally play that game, because like, I want my truck showing up on time. I want that familiarity built up with my customers and my carriers so they can get in and out of these facilities. We can just develop a system, because that's what I look for long-term. Again, I could go out to this on this lane in particular, which is very similar to the ones that we move. I could go out there and find cheaper trucks all the time, but at what expense? And I think that is what the outbound Florida market overall, minus produce season, that's what that drives. And again, I know that most shippers that are down there understand that market as well. But I look at it as if you're going out there, at least in my world, at least in the open deck space, where, it does pay more, a lot more than dry vans coming out of this market. I look at it from a stability standpoint. All right. I hate having to go out and try and find a cheaper truck. I want to deliver that consistency to my customers. I want to deliver that consistency to my carriers, and I want to reward them. And I apply this strategy, you guys, whether it's a broker's market or a carrier's market. And I want you guys to apply this strategy going into what you are going to see in the event that the market shifts coming up here. Again, I don't know when it's going to shift, but in the event that it does, you're not going to be able to move freight if you don't have trucks. And especially if you build a ton of resistance to your organization out there because you're constantly trying to reshuffle your carriers and find a cheaper truck. But this lane, you guys, out of Fort Myers, Florida, going up to Richmond, Virginia, is the epitome of stability. And this is essentially the way this market performs going up into New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Those are also lanes that we move. So this one for me, again, these rates are similar. I would personally try and get more money out of your shipper, and I would pay above market on this lane in particular, because again, once you find that right carrier for your customers' freight, you're never going to want to go back. And that's just that strategy that I personally implement, you guys, especially on some of these easier to cover lanes. I apply this strategy because I want to build that trust up inside of that relationship with my carriers and my customers so I can consistently execute upon this freight. But again, this lane doesn't change much, you guys. Like, this is about as shooting fish in a barrel as you can get out there from a capacity standpoint and everything else. And if you got a customer who has consistent business out of there, you will never have trouble covering freight outbound Florida in going up into Richmond, Virginia, especially if you're moving it on a flatbed. Unless you want to go out there and try and drive that price down, then you're going to find yourself probably recovering a lot of trucks. But you don't do that, because if you listen to this show, you don't operate in that manner, because we do things the right way out here. But that is my lane breakdown, the epitome of stability. And then I'm going to say this with like 120% confidence, because I move this almost exact lane year round for my customer. And it is one of the workhorse lanes that we have out there. And we have a really solid carrier network that is moving this stuff for them. So go out there, get it, get that volume. You just never know when things might change out there. And again, you guys, I do these lane analyses to help you guys, essentially, we got to be able to read an actual market and find the consistencies, because the numbers are always going to change, right? Rates go up, rates go down, things happen in the market, but we got to find that pattern that is out there to actually analyze a lane and how it performs throughout the year. Because I think outside of a couple of years that there was some extreme volatility, most of the time, the majority of the time, the market performs the same. And the data tells that story. So it's like, for me, I don't care what goes on in the market. I'm going to find a way to win. I'm going to adjust my pricing accordingly, and I'm going to make it work. That's my mentality. That's just the way that I operate. And that's the way I'm going to continue to operate out there, because it's like, it doesn't matter to me what's going on. Because here's one thing that is often not talked about with the pundits out there, because, they're not actually moving freight, is this: my customers do not care about 99% of the stuff that you see on social media. They care about their customers getting taken care of. They care about their product picking up on time, delivering on time, your communication, and all of that stuff. So I think a lot of people put too much emphasis on too many things that are outside of their controls. And I think this is why, no matter what, the fundamentals and what we're going to describe here is really what you need to follow. So I look at it like this, and we're going to assume you got the right TMS. You got Revenova. You got the load board access. You got DAT for that. You got a CRM and, Sales Dash, shout out. They're my CRM. That's who we use. And, we're going to assume you got all of that stuff, but where do you start? I am a massive, massive proponent of owning your backyard. I live here in Arizona. I spend a lot of time prospecting companies that have locations here in Arizona. Now, they might be headquartered out east, but I'm solely focused in on their Arizona and Southwest region shipping hubs. That's my area of focus. Now, my mode of transport, what I do, you guys, I do full truckload. I'm a full truckload and a partial truckload guy. 99% of the freight that I move is done via open deck, flatbeds, step decks, Conestogas, RGNs. We don't move a ton of OD and heavy haul freight at this moment. I do have extensive experience in doing so. So that is my sales pitch when I'm going out there and I'm prospecting customers, right? So my ICP, my ideal customer profile, is the definition of that: open deck, transportation, shippers, right? Building materials, machinery, road construction, stuff like that. That is the core premise of the business that I am going after. My friend Kara Smith Brown wrote this book called The Revenue Engine. Okay. I highly recommend everybody inside of transportation. If you haven't bought this book or read this book, or if you bought it and it's been collecting dust on your desk, I highly recommend you pick this up and you read this book extensively. All right. Take a ton of notes in there. Very rarely do I highlight stuff in books, but like I have a bunch of markings written all over this one. Now, the second book I'm going to highly, highly recommend you guys all pick up and start reading immediately after you read that one, Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount. This book fundamentally changed my entire life when it comes to how I prospect business, how I try and develop customers and everything else. And I just highly recommend those two books, you guys. You can get them on Amazon and just get them. Like, again, it's going to be the best, like probably $40 you're going to spend out there as you're trying to build a process, right? Because that is step one. Step 1A. Because step one is, what's your ideal customer profile, the core region that you have. And I would also include, what is your sales process look like? Now, me, Chris Jolly in particular, I love cold calling. Okay. I love cold calling. I love site visits. I love getting in front of people. I understand the anxieties that come along with cold calling and why people don't like to do it or don't want to do it. I get it. Because it can be scary at times. All right. But this is the most effective way to get to that yes or no answer. And that is where I'm at, because it's like, I need to understand, where am I at in the sales process? If you've never talked to the decision maker before, if you've never had any meaningful conversations, most people, one of the terms that I love is pitch slap everybody that they talk to. I look at it as if I, and again, the reality is, you guys, 90% of the time, people don't even answer the phone. Gatekeepers, shipping managers, nobody even answers the phone, right? 10% of the time, if they do answer the phone, it's going to be a gatekeeper who's going to transfer it through. Or they're going to ask, what's the point of you calling? Again, you got to have your pitch down and everything else, but you might talk to 2 decision makers, 5 decision makers throughout the week, depending on the call volumes that you make out there. But again, I look at it as I understand where I'm at in the sales process. How do I get in front of them? But most importantly, the biggest thing, I got to follow up with that prospect. Okay. So my first thing is I'm going out there, I'm utilizing all the technology that's at my disposal. I use a ton of AI to research all of my prospects. You should be doing the exact same thing. All right. It is my literal sales assistant. No, I don't make any AI-based cold calls that come along with it, but it gives me all the information that I need. It's going to give me the probability of the trailer type that they ship. It's going to give me their product names, and it's going to go to some potential destinations that come along with it. I've worked with my AI sales assistant extensively over the last probably like 4 months to really build it up to where I can get this system down. And my thing is how do you sound different on the phone? That's got to be your main focus, because everybody's going to go in and say, hey, I'm a broker. Can I quote your freight? Can you add me to your distribution list? How do I bid on your freight? I'm the best at everything. We do everything. That's kind of like the gist of it, right? And you might be sitting there and be like, yeah, you don't know that. That's not true. I do know that's true. I have a lot of shippers who watch this show. I've befriended a lot of shippers. They tell me, they show me these things. Like, they give me the most direct feedback that's out there. And I've asked them, like, I've stress tested my approach to them. And again, I think it's always smart to preface, like, it's not going to be it's not going to be it for everyone, right? Like, not everybody's going to buy into the way that I approach it, but I'm going to approach and attract the right shippers with this. So it's like, if I get a decision maker on the phone, it's going to be as simple as this. I am going to introduce myself. I have the exact same pitch. It's going to sound something similar like this every single time. Hey, good morning. My name is Chris Jolly. I was hoping to speak with somebody who handles your transportation or logistics, please. All right. Gatekeeper transfers me through. Decision maker answers the phone. Hey, good morning. My name is Chris Jolly. We are a freight broker. I am calling to see, though, today, is your ABC product, are you loading that on this trailer type in particular? And I go as far as finding the dimensions and everything else. And then I'm going to ask them about insurance values. I'm going to ask them about something very pressing that most people won't, because again, I'm trying to get as much information as I possibly can, because ultimately, if they don't load flatbeds at all for their product, or you know what, there's some websites I've been on and some researches I've done, and turns out they actually manufacture like gaskets, but they have like a bunch of heavy equipment on there because the gaskets that they manufacture are for the heavy equipment. They're like, actually, we only do X. We never do flatbeds. Like, oh shit. All right. Well, I misread that one. Move on, chalk that up to the game. But I do that because I want to ask them specifics about their product, how it's transported, because I need to find that stuff out as soon as possible. And I do that most importantly because I want to throw them off in a way that, like, because they're robotic in their responses, because most people are lazy with their approach. Most people are saying an iteration of the exact same thing. And they're easy to say, we're not adding anybody right now. And then they hang up. When I get them on the phone and I hit them with that, I hit them with a pretty complex question that it makes them kind of take a step back and be like, wait a second, what was your question? And then I ask it to them again. And then more often than not, they're gonna be like, yes, we do that, but we're good right now. My response always, I'm not going to push it in that moment. Hey, Tim, you know what? I completely understand. I frankly, I know how the market's performing. Like I had mentioned, I only do flatbeds, or I only do step decks, open deck trailers. I would really just love an opportunity to stay in front of you. Promise I'm not going to call you next week or tomorrow and act like we never talked, but I would just like an opportunity to respectfully follow up with you. It's almost like 100% success rate. They're like, yeah, you can call me back. That's fine. Right. And again, I got the verbal. I got the, yes, they ship flatbeds. Yes, I can call them back. Like that's a massive win. Right. And I do that because like I'm trying to build up actual prospects that actually ship freight inside of my core target market. And I'm not going to fall into those dead end traps of calling the same numbers in that closed loop. And you're never talking to anybody. You're never making progress and you're never doing anything, because ultimately all the customers that I've onboarded, especially recently, have had everything to do with the fact that I knew their freight. I knew how it was transported. I knew the trailer types it was going to be moved on. I had a very high probability of guessing their exact customer profile on who they were shipping to, how the stuff was offloaded. That's how I've earned people's business to get in the door, right? And again, we're just talking about how I've gotten in the door. Growing an account, servicing an account, that's an entirely different conversation, which we can have at a later date. But I look at this as we have to identify what their current gaps are in their service. And then how do we find a way to fit into that where we can kind of be there in the event their current network fails? Because as Kara writes in her book, right, all of my, and I stand here today saying this, all of my customers today are somebody else's top prospect, right? Just like all of my prospects are somebody else's customer. I'm just waiting for that gap. I'm waiting for that opening so I can charge right through that door. And after a couple of shipments, I can make them forget their entire network, because in my opinion, nobody serves and communicates at the level that I do, that it's going to make my customers question and never want to work with anybody else ever again. Because good, bad, or indifferent, they're going to know exactly what's going on when they're working with me. Number two, once you're kind of in there, right? Like we're out there and we're setting that structure. Okay. So that's kind of how I talk to people. But now here's what's a very, very important step. How do I structure my day? Okay. I do blocks. Now sometimes it's challenging to do this, because when you're moving freight, depending on whether you're working in a cradle to grave or you're working in that team environment, you are going to find yourself in a situation where time is going to become fleeting, we will call it. We need to find a way to stay in front of our calls and build that system up, right? Like that's why I'm a massive, massive fan of Sales Dash. No, they don't pay me, but I pay them and I use them, and I will never go without their product because it keeps me organized. Because here is one massive gap that I found in my operation last year. Yes, we grew, which was fantastic, but we stalled and we missed out on a lot of opportunities. We had a lot of great conversations, a lot of follow up with us on this date, and we never followed through with it. And that cost us business. We were using Excel spreadsheets and Google documents. And frankly, it was the wrong decision to make in the long term. Now, I get it if you don't have the money to pay for it, but I think you need it sooner than you think. But that is the thing. Maybe you can go as far, and again, like utilize AI, have it integrated in to your calendar. Like, hey, I just talked to this person, schedule a follow-up on my calendar for 2 weeks. And then you can kind of stay in front of them, because that's the big thing. And I look at it is you got to structure your day to where you have your dedicated cold call power hours. And I do that every single day from 8 to 9 my time, or when we in Arizona, when we go to Pacific time, it's from 7 to 8 a.m. Pacific time, which is 10 to 11 Eastern. And I hit the East Coast and I work my way back. Most businesses, like yes, there are companies that are headquartered in Arizona and started here, but like the majority of my prospects are all East Coast. So I start East and I work my way West from my prospecting. I have my number that I hit every single day of 30 cold calls a day and 15 sales emails a day. That is my out. So I do 45 touches a day. And I built up that 15 emails because I've called a lot of places. I've gotten email addresses. I've talked to the decision maker. They're like, dude, just email me. Please don't call me. Like, I got enough shit going on, which I get, right? Like, I got to meet my prospect where they are. Just because I like to cold call doesn't mean they want to talk to me on the phone. So I got to find that middle ground. If it's email, it's email. But again, I need to keep my pipeline full of new prospects. And so I go up and I hit that number every single day and I block off an hour of my time. All right. For that hour, it is cold call only. It is balls to the walls. I am getting as many dials as I can. On a normal day, I can get like 20 dials in that hour, because again, back to what I was saying early, 90% of the time, you guys, people aren't going to answer the phone. All right. So it's like, you got to have those numbers. You got to have them preloaded. One thing that I did before I had my CRM, in my CRM, it just lists off my 30 calls. So I need to go and I just go down the list at that point. But what I would do is as I was building, I'd have 5 websites up and I would just go down the line. I would call, boom, close it, call, boom, close it, call, boom, close it, and then move on. And then I'd preload the next 5 websites, because I enjoy prospecting when I have the company's website in front of me and I can just ask them like an actual logical question about their operation. And I do that. And I say, find that number that works for you, most importantly, because like I was saying earlier, I would rather have somebody who's consistently good than occasionally great, because it's like, I don't need you to hit your numbers twice a month. Like, I need you to hit your numbers every single day. So what is that number that gets it done every single day without fail? And that is one thing that you got to work up to. So if you've never made cold calls in your life before and you're now starting out on your own, start with something that doesn't make you visibly vomit when you think about it, right? I think a good number to start with is 10. Heck, it might be 5. I would rather see you make 5 cold calls a day every day for 3 weeks than make 50 in one day once and then never pick up the phone ever again. Okay? Because it's all about building that discipline to do the work every single day, whether you like it or not. And furthermore, if you get hung up on or you have a bad call, don't stew on it. Just pick up the phone and put your next dial in, because the best way to cure any of your anxiety is going to be through action. And I want you to do that. So, again, we got our ICP, we got our system down that we got to follow. And, again, the real progress shows in how long it takes you to do that activity, right? So it's like, if you're out there doing, say it's 5 calls, say it takes you 5 hours. I don't know. You can only do 1 in an hour and you get sick for whatever reason, right? Do that one. Your real point of progress shows is when you can get that time down to like an hour, right? Maybe it only takes you an hour. That's a massive step, right? You got 4 more hours, but then just add 5. Okay. Don't go in and be like, I got to add 50 and now I got to do 50 calls a day, because again, you might be able to hit it once or twice, but when that inevitable breakdown happens of not actually doing the work consistently every single day, that's where you really start to fall apart. And we can't have that happen. All right. We got to have you show up and do the work, because you have your ICP. You just got to start your reps. Okay. Your reps are everything. And that's kind of like step 3. It's going to be the only way that you're going to be able to make any progress is you got to get out there and do the work. Okay. You have to get out there and do the work. You got to practice your pitch. I look like an absolute psychopath and sound like one too when I'm walking around because I'm constantly practicing my pitch because it's so rare for people to pick up the phone. I have to be able to execute. All right. If they pick up the phone, I got 5 seconds to woo them, right? I got 5 seconds to say who I am, why I'm calling. And then again, I got to ask them a pressing question that is not a yes or no. All right. That's my thing. So I go through those reps all the time. Hey, my name is Chris Jolly. Hey, my name is Chris Trolley. And that's one thing you got to start with. If you've never made cold calls before, practice introducing yourself because that's a very big thing. Who's calling? I've done that before and I've been hung up on. So it's like, and I say that same thing to the gatekeeper, that same introduction that I do to the decision maker. Hey, good morning. My name is Chris Jolly. Hey, good morning. My name is Chris Jolly. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Chris Jolly. There's a lot of power in that, right? And you got to break that call down. It's like, that's who I am. Who are you with? What are you doing? Hey, I am a broker. I specialize in this, right? Flatbed, drive-in, refrigerated, food, whatever. Interject any of that stuff. Here's why I'm calling. Hey, with this product, are you guys shipping it this way? Is it going into this type of facility? It is. Or, hey, this product, is it shipping on this kind of thing? Hey, is this thing worth like 250 grand? Is this high value cargo? Do we need riders for this? Boom. We got to get it in there because, again, we want to establish ourselves as a subject matter expert. And, you know, for my thing is then ultimately the ultimate goal is like I was saying earlier, we got to get them to agree to let us call them back. Like that's a huge thing, right? And the reality is do they remember talking to us? No, not at all. We have to make them remember us, right? We make them remember us by how we follow up with them. How are we respecting their time? And then, you know, so it's like, I look at this, and if you've made it this far in the episode, you're probably like, this sounds overly simple. It is. It's very simple to follow these steps that I'm laying out there. Own your backyard, choose your ideal customer profile, practice your pitch, make a set amount of calls every single day, and do that long enough that you're going to eventually crack in and you're going to eventually earn some business. And then that follow-up. But the thing is, it sounds simple, but very rarely do people actually do it. All right. Very rarely are people going to do it because it's easy to do anything when you're occasionally motivated. I personally don't believe in motivation at all. I think motivation is, I don't want to wear my tinfoil hat, but I think motivation is a joke that too many people occasionally rely on to be occasionally great when they should just focus on being consistently good. Right. And I'm not saying that I need to be great on the phone, right? Like I need to be great. I need to have my pitch down. I need to know why I'm calling these people. I have to have some actual value and substance behind it. But most importantly, a lot of people never actually go through with it, or they hit that first wall and then they never make any more calls, or they just quit, right? Like the older I get, the more I realize that when most people hit that first wall of adversity, they quit. They give up. They fold it up. This isn't for me. It's done. It's over with. I got to go find a new job, or nobody's adding in anybody right now. Oh, the market's terrible. This one person said all brokers are the same. I shouldn't do it anymore. That's what stops most people, right? And then you're finding yourself finding a new job every single day. And I'm not immune to that. I've been told all of that stuff on the phone when I'm cold calling. I get hung up on. I have to deal with all of that stuff. That's part of it, right? But it's not an attack on me, the man. It's just the situation, right? Like this isn't a knock on me as a person. It's just the nature of the beast, right? And that's why I said, most importantly, the second you get hung up on, or the second you get told no, thank you, no, take me off your list, and it seems aggressive, it's not. It seems that way. I want you to pick up the phone and just make that next dial, because you're going to forget about it. The sooner you get into it, you're going to forget about it, just like they already forgot about you. So just don't give them any power, you know? So it's like, as we're kind of summarizing this here, this is literally what I did. All right. This is exactly what I did to build my book of business up to an annual 7-figure gross revenue book of business and brokerage. Okay. Is simple, but again, own your backyard wherever you are in the country. Own your backyard. Choose one thing to start. Okay. You might only want to do dry van, full truckload, reefer full. Just do one thing and become undeniably better than everybody else at it. And then step 3, you got to get a set system down to where you're consistently reaching out to your prospects. You're following up, you're calling them, and you're putting in the reps, because it takes a lot of effort to get anything off the ground in any market. Okay. It does not matter the market. Everything we talk about on this show is market agnostic because I don't care what happens in the market. I have to find a way to win. My family depends on me to find a way to win. I'm not going to look my wife in the eye or my kids in the eye and say, sorry, you can't eat this week because dad was afraid to pick up the phone. All right. It is as simple as all that I've laid it out. And again, you guys have any questions? Email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com. We answer this stuff live on the show all the time. You just got to ask for it. But again, follow those simple steps, buy those books, put in the reps. Trust me, you guys, what worked for me, it might not work for you. But if you actually put in the work, eventually it's going to start to materialize. You're going to get that cadence down. You're going to get that system down. People are going to respond. Things are going to start to happen for you. And you're going to start moving freight. You're going to start making money. And then a lot of your problems start to go away when the money starts rolling in and that confidence starts rolling in. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.